okay, that was muted. There we go. Okay. So anyway, sorry, all that. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, just to recap, we're working with Cloudflare and durable objects. We're going to have the durable object is going to control the sort of game rooms. So let's say you and 2+ more people will create a room, set up a game of 3 to 6 players. You can play 2 to 6. 2 has slightly different rules. So I'm just going to start with 3 to 6 players. So you're going to create a room, shared link or something. And that's going to create one of these server game state machines. And that's going to control the actual game state. Then separately and connectedly, there will be a client state machine, one for each client running on the client machine. And that's going to sort of control the state on the client side and interact between the server and the client. So you on the client will, be whatever, clicking through your cards, or you'll be selecting options, but not, like you're considering playing this card and you select it, but maybe you don't say like lock it in, send, whatever, yet. And then you do. And once you do, that's when that event gets sent up to the server. And you can also maybe do some stuff around optimistically saving that state into your local machine's repository or whatever, local state for that state machine. And then from there, waiting to get the confirmation back from the server before it's, official. And that could just be like a pending, whatever. Okay, cool. Okay. Back again. All right. So we're working through, basically I went through these over here on the left side are the rules, the, like kind of couple pages on the rules. I have sort of translated that into a state machine using this mermaid editor. And now I'm taking that and I'm turning that into my state machine. So I'm working through these bit by bit, and it's basically breaking out into states. The states are, and I'm kind of new to XState as well and haven't used it much, but I feel like this is a great case for using it. My thought here is each of these basically, the squares, rectangles, sorry, this is going to be the states. And then we have these events will transition between these. One little tweak that I'm going to make is that I will dogs need to be set up. Okay. One little tweak I'm making here. So basically the gist of it is the game mechanic basically works around deal making, and the game is based on a paper. So Planet Money is an economics podcast. So they created this game based on um, a, a pretty well-known, I guess, economics paper called "A Market for Lemons," I think, and it's basically about asymmetric information in a market. So my idea um, so it's based on deal making. So in each of these, basically the core loop as we go through here is one person is a buyer. The buyer has the buyer token. That person then gets deals. So each of the other 2 to 5 players will pick 3 cards from their hand and offer that as a deal. And they'll flip one of those, 2 of them face down, one of them they'll flip face up. Then the buyer will get to pick one additional of the face down cards, not per hand, but just overall one additional face down card to flip face up. That's, I think, part of the like extra asymmetric information in the deal. So then from there, the buyer gets to pick one of those offered deals to keep, and then that goes into their collection, which is sort of like the live points, and the rest will go into the collections. If your deal doesn't get picked, your deal goes into your collection. And there are sort of 3 types of cards. There are these green plus cards, red minus cards, and then these black action cards. The goal is to get enough, for every 10 points worth green points, you get to exchange that for a token, and 5 tokens wins. For every 10 or more red points, you lose a token. So the goal is obviously to get as many tokens. So you want to get as many green as you want, and black cards are good too because they give you these special actions that you can play. But you're sort of balancing as the buyer. You want to make sure you're getting a good deal. And as the offerer, you want to either, you want to walk that line of, if you have a good hand, you want to be able to keep it. If you have a bad hand, you want to send the bad cards over to the buyer and keep the good cards. So it's about picking how you want to represent the deal. It's about which cards you pick. It's about which one you flip face up. And then it's about talking, deal making, being strategic when you're talking to the other players, the buyer and the other players. So anyway, the one tweak I want to make here is once the buyer flips over that extra card, you sort of enter this window. Kind of the way I initially modeled it, sort of being maybe a little more literal or something, locked into how it's written in the rules. But I think I want to make an adjustment that I think will fit the rules better and will maybe simplify things. But the way I have it here is, once we get into this phase, anyone can play actions. So the buyer or the sellers can play those black action cards if they have them. Then at some point in here, once all the players have said, I don't want to play any more action cards, like pass, whatever, then that's when let me see if I can phase. High. Medium. How's that? Oh, no. There we go. I'm back. Cool. So anyway, that's where then the buyer says they're ready to, not saying which one yet, but they say they're ready to pick a deal. Then that's sort of your like last call to play more actions if you want. And then if you don't, then the buyer accepts their deal. If you do, you sort of go from there. And then the buyer token goes to the person whose deal was accepted, the seller whose deal was accepted. Cool. So anyway, the point being that's what I had originally, but in modeling this out a little more, I think this is going to be one, cycle here. This can all happen at once. So we're going to be accepting events in the, what did we call it? Accepting deal phase that are going to be either, I think we also define them up here. Deal select is accepting the deal. And action play, action pass. So still sort of figuring it out, but basically once we flip over that card, then anyone's allowed to play actions. And simultaneously, in that same state, that's when the buyer is thinking about what deal to take, talking, or also playing actions. So anyone can play actions there. One of the events we could get is a deal select. Once that happens, then that kind of needs to be broadcast out to the clients to say, last call, pick an action. So I think that's sort of something that I'm going to need to figure out. Here, you know what I think I'm going to need to do is getting an OBS overload error. Whatever. Well, seems fine for now. Okay, so I'm going to continue to model this. I'm trying to think what the best way to do that. Once I feel like we're going to have, I think I have a state in here somewhere. We need to add some more. First, let's just do to do and let's add those for now to remind ourselves to go back. I was seeing some of this, again, sort of new to XState. I was seeing some stuff here around like naming conventions so that you can sort of say like pick a say like action star or whatever. So I sort of tried to follow that convention a little bit, but I don't know if it matters here. Anyway, we can come back to that. So I'm trying to think. I think in our context here, we have action pass player IDs and accepting deal confirmed. So maybe this should be like selected deal or something like that. Accepted deal offer ID. I don't remember. What did I say that was? Accepted deal offer ID. Oh, this was the ID. Accepted deal offerer ID. Okay, so the ID of the, let's say that. So this is the ID of the seller user offering the deal that's been accepted. So I think in deal select, we are going to in deal select, we set that. Well, we will set the ID of the seller, user ID, ID of seller whose deal was, maybe we say this, like selected deal seller ID, and then selected deal confirmed. I'm just trying to think how we can sort of describe that. The idea is basically in here, keeping in mind that this is all one phase, but it doesn't matter who's playing what actions or who doesn't want to play an action or whatever until this happens, until the buyer says they want to pick a deal. From there, once they said they want to pick a deal, the players don't know for sure. But once they said they want to pick a deal, the I don't know. I'm trying to think. I still don't. Well, this may still work. Once the buyer has said they want to select a deal, then we basically need to get a pass or, confirm or whatever from all the players confirming that they don't want to play any further actions. And then at that point, the deal is accepted and we can move on. If someone does play an action, I kind of think we're going to have to clear out this whole action pass player ID. Which is the has the deal been accepted. So accepted, I don't know if that's the right word for that, because accepted maybe kind of implies that the buyer has to accept. Maybe we should say locked or something. Selected deal locked. Has the selected deal been locked in? Meaning buyer has picked a deal seller ID, and all players, including the buyer, have confirmed they don't play any further action cards. Maybe there's something else we can do around, like, I'm thinking maybe there's a timer or something, maybe we just for the, to keep the game fun, we have something that says like, okay, the buyer has picked a deal. You now have X amount of time to either pick a action you want to play or to give up, or pass or whatever, or you get auto passed. And then there's also the case of they may not have any action cards they can play, but if we just auto pass for them as soon as we get into this part of it, then if we do that, then it would sort of might signify to all the other players that they don't have any action cards, which may not be fair, I guess. So, okay. Let's get back into it here. So that's the other thing is I think this is the first one of these states where up to this point, all of these states have sort of it's been a direct state to state. But in this loop, it's going to be a little trickier, I think. And that's going to get into, I'm going to have to do a little more scouring of the documentation to see the deal, game end. Yeah, I guess I did also put game start and game end. And this may be an auto. I think there's a type in XState for that, where it just automatically transitions from game start, or maybe we make that an event or something. Because this is sort of, we have the core game, and then we're sort of layering on top of that. Maybe there's some admin permissions or something, doing things like, booting a player out of the game or making a move for a player or, whatever. But we can figure that out too later. Okay. So, yeah, maybe let's add some context in here. And the other thing I'm looking at here is there's sort of, I'm just thinking about this additional event data. So in addition to the type of the event being submitted, we also have any other context that's going in. So like offer a deal, a player offers a deal. And let's say this is coming from, directly from the client who's offering the deal. But what is coming from the client's state machine themselves, and what other context do we need to layer in from their session or whatever. I think this should be fine because it has the player ID in there. Here, this kind of I may have to go back and clean this up a little bit, I guess is part of the point. But like this is coming from the session, and this is the deal they're selecting, and this is the index of the card they want to flip over. So deal select. Maybe we just keep that in everything. Right? That makes sense. So yeah, maybe we should use this instead in our guard. Deal.player ID. I've already offered a deal. Context.deals. Event.player ID. Cool. And then we kind of are skipping over the fact that the deal is listed in there. Let's add that. And we're just moving the player ID out, let's say. Actions, deals. Oh yeah, here we go. Sweet. Okay, that works. Just so we don't have to rely on, it might make it a little easier to have that be context information versus request information. Deal comes from the request, player ID comes from session context data. Okay. Action pass. Action select, or deal select, action pass. Action pass, I don't think needs anything else, right? Card index. That's another thing is, do we need, we kind of got into this before, but we're using card index here. The idea being in a hand of cards, if this server is looking at the player's cards, looking at an array might get, array indices might make it a little, I don't know, might make it a little trickier rather than, I don't know, a chance for confusion talking about like, oh, the third card rather than, if we know the actual card that it is. But in the case of flip card, this is the the buyer saying, this face down card, I want you to flip over. But if that's the case, this face down card I want you to flip over. Right. So and the point being the buyer doesn't know the card, and we don't want to, even if we could share that information with with all the clients, but then there's sort of the potential for cheating the system. So we want to keep that anonymous and just say they have X amount of cards. One option could potentially be maybe this is the most straightforward, and maybe I'm just overthinking this. But this option is you just say, a shared array. The array has X amount of cards, and some are face up, some are face down. One is face up, the rest are face down. But maybe I don't know, maybe there's a potential for order confusion there. An alternative would be you could just say, not because there's no way to really know, and because it's digital, maybe in person there would be something more to do with like, oh, I don't know, this player always keeps their best cards at the beginning or at the end, and maybe there's a little more of art to it. But I feel like in this case, that's not really a thing. Or maybe it could be, I don't know. So flipping a face down card, it doesn't really matter if it's which one you pick. You could just say flip a face down card from this player and pick at random, and it kind of doesn't matter. So anyway, let's start with arrays for now, and just asterisk, we'll come back to that. But so that's that one. Action play, on the other hand, maybe instead, because it's me, the player, picking a card from my own hand, maybe this should be a card ID instead. So if we look back at cards, card type, I guess, this was something sort of we had talked about before, the idea of a card being sort of broader than just the card type, because there are multiple of each of these. There's like 10 green 5s or something like that, and 5 green 1s, and blah blah blah. Should they each have a unique ID, I guess, was a question we came up with before. I don't know, I'm gonna leave it in for now, but I think card type is probably, let's say action card should be a card type. And we'll import that. Action pass doesn't need anything else. Deal select. It shouldn't be this, it should be the deal player ID. Okay, and now let's implement some of these. Right? Okay. And this, I think both of these steps here kind of are automated. And maybe there's a little bit of a maybe we don't want that to happen instantaneously, but for the most part, I think it's just runs on its own. I don't think there's any decision making that needs to happen there from the players, which is its own question that we'll sort of maybe come back to, is how do you, I don't know, in a durable object WebSocket server, how do you do, what is the best way to do that? Maybe we just cross that bridge down the road. Okay. Let's look at these 3 event types and implement them down here. Deal.select, action.play, action.pass. Play, I already have those 2. Deal.select. Okay, so Yeah, maybe we do this order. So action.play is going to matter based on, looking back here, we're going to have separately the guards for let's say return true, just as a placeholder for now. Yeah, here we go. Actions. We'll just stop. We'll just get these set up. Target, this is another one. I guess the target is the same. There's, I don't know if you're supposed to have it be, do you not set, if it's loops back to itself, do you set this, or do you just not set anything? I'll just set that for now. And we'll duplicate this. Same thing here. So deal.select, it's going to have some guards, but it's not going to, I think the only thing that will actually potentially transition to another state is, excuse me, action.pass. The idea being, it's not until each of the players says, I'm done picking actions, I want to pass. Deal.select can be played anytime, can be, let's say played anytime in here. But we may want to leave that, pass option open to the buyer, so that, let's say they've selected, I want to pick player A's deal. Then someone plays an action and it, like looking at some of these cards here, some of them are like flip one, discard the card anytime, blah, blah, flip one card in any deal face up. So I've picked player A's, I'm the buyer, I picked player A's deal. Based on what I've seen, there's a, green 5 and 2 face down cards. I say, someone, me, I pick that one. Player B flips one more of player A's cards. And then it turns out it's a red 10. So I don't want to pick that one anymore. But I have locked in, I have set up in our game state. Pull that back up here. Selected deal seller ID. So I've selected A, player A that's the idea of player A. How do you make it so, I don't want to, if an action is played, it shouldn't blow away the fact that I have picked player A's deal, because I may still want to keep it. But it shouldn't lock it in and prevent me from picking a deal. So that should be mutable up until I say pass, pass and select deal. And maybe that's, some verbiage we specify there, that for the buyer specifically, pass after picking a deal. Passing here means also you're locking in that deal. And then if you do pass after that, someone else plays an action, it should unpass you, and it should unpass everyone, I think, because someone plays an action, someone else may want to play an action. Okay, so back into it here. and let's just fill these in while we're here. IDs of the, so action pass player IDs, that should be, basically just a set of which players have confirmed that they want to pass on the deal and which ones haven't. And maybe we should treat that as a set or something. I don't know. But because part of it is we're going to have to serialize these, and I don't know how that works. We could make it a object or some map or something. But whatever. IDs of the players who have playing actions. Note, if anyone plays an action, all this list gets reset. Because, maybe I didn't want to play an action, but if you played an action, that may change things and I may want to then play one. So cool. Action history. This one, I'm not sure if this is the right place to put that. But I kind of think it would be helpful to keep track somewhere of who has played what action cards, but kind of, I don't have a real plan for this. Track, play this round, and we'll give it a question mark. I don't know. It could be helpful, but maybe just looking at the state of, who's played what is going to be enough. All right. So let's get into this. Selecting a deal. This should be easy enough. The guard is there you go. Is the deal player the current buyer? What is that? Deal player ID. Oh boy. Deal select. Oh yeah, no. Okay, that makes sense. A player can't select their own deal. That shouldn't happen, but I guess, cursor's right there about that, I guess. Is the player selecting a deal the current buyer? Only the buyer can select a deal. That should pretty much be it. It shouldn't matter if there is already a deal selected or not, because and I wonder, this is something else, is I don't know if there's a good way to do guards, like can they return errors, or is that something we'll handle differently? Yeah, let's look in here. Guards, in-state guards. You can use the state in-state value guard to check if the current state matches the provided state value. What? Another event goes on. I don't really know how that works, but oh, okay. On some event guard, type some guard, and then I guess you just put them. Guard can later be provided or overwritten. Interesting. Let's look at transitions too, or target. Event list transition. So that I think is some of the that's basically resolving the deal, I think. Because nothing happens there, maybe, but maybe it has an action, but it automatically. But then again, also maybe it goes to game end. So we need to figure out the target. Is how do you have like a dynamic target? Actions, finite states. One of the possible states, targets. Target, blah, blah. States closed. Okay, I don't think we're there. If we talk about that ID, it's okay. Start simple, identity, blah, blah. Finite states cheat sheet. I think I'm still missing how you go to how you like choose a state, and maybe that's just I'm not modeling this correctly, and maybe we need to break this up into actions, fire and forget effects, events and transitions. Maybe transition is transition between states, selecting transitions, deepest child state first. Okay. Without changing. So this is what basically deal.select and action.play are self transitions. Okay, no target. So I think I can just take these out. Deal.select. But multiple transitions. Transitions to any state. On, star, target, awake. No. Yeah, I would think there would be what I haven't seen yet is like a function here. Being able to say if, branch. Determining the next state. It is recommended to use the initial transition and transition functions instead of get next snapshot. When you create a state machine actor, the next state is determined by the machine's current state and the event that is sent to the actor. If you want to determine the next state outside of the actor, you can use the get next snapshot. That's not, I think, what we're looking for. XState branch target. With XState, how do I handle a case where an event may transition to of two states? The target can just be a single, can just be a string, not, for example, a function with an if else. Am I modeling it wrong? Okay, let's see what ChatGPT says. Conditional transitions. Okay. Conditional target. Why isn't that? Sign target validating. You know what? I wonder if I do think this is a modeling issue, not. I think that's a hallucination or something. Because, and maybe we do. Yeah. Okay. I feel like this is wrong. I feel like we should have sort of like substates or something like that. And it should because we can just have the guard be, I don't know. Let's go back to that. Events and transitions. Initial states. I don't know. Am I thinking about that wrong? What is like, maybe it is there like a trigger an event? I feel like somewhere in here needs to be basically we need to check. The question is in this list, if it's full, then we transition out and we start resolving the deal. Otherwise, we go back in. I guess that's the answer. Is maybe we don't need to get complicated with that. Does the guard prevent? Ooh, that's a question. I just don't feel like I can find a way. does the guard run before the action? It seems like we want the action to run, but not to transition, if that makes sense. So the action would be log it as a pass. The transition would be if the guard doesn't run. So we need a guard for accepting the pass and pushing that user into our action pass player IDs list. Then, depending on if it's full or not, we need to either loop back into accepting deals or guard. Let me see. Parent state, parallel state. Parent state where only one child state is active at a time. Exit all of its regions. Track volume, play, pause, mute, unmute. Okay, I don't think that helps us. Final states, okay. Doesn't really help us. Event emitter. No. Events and transitions. Transition to any state. Sibling descendant states. Okay, that doesn't matter. Re-entering. It will not re-enter the state. Oh, exit and entry. No, that doesn't seem right. Parent to child. States, system, auto, light, dark. I don't see parent child there. Re-enter is true. Other transitions. Multiple. Set dark custom, theme custom. Okay. This event will transition both regions to specific states. Other transitions, transition descriptions, transition targets. Target, see on states. Okay, so here's the substates. Maybe we go back to guards and see if there's a way to inline guards, guard objects, shorthands, in-state guards. Higher level guards. What am I not seeing here? Raise. Oh. Send to. Maybe this is it. Here we go. This feels like the right thing. Right? I feel like I don't know what in here yet, but it feels like we're on the right track. Ooh, built-in actions are not imperative. This will have no effect. I don't quite follow that. Increment. Great. Raises an event that is received by the same machine. Send an event to itself. When an event is raised, it is placed into an internal event queue. That's so far this seems like the only thing that I think actually would work. Send to parent queue. Right? It doesn't really feel like the right thing. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem like it, right? It seems like what should happen is it seems like you should just be able to say do or don't transition or something like that. But the raise, we could emit another event. We could add another one that says like deal confirm or something, and action pass could always raise a deal confirm. It can log you as passed, but it won't actually transition. It would, like, these just be a self transition, I think is what it's called. But it would also raise a deal confirm, which would have a guard, which wouldn't change anything, but it would have, or I guess maybe it would, but it would have a guard that would say, unless everyone has passed, it fails and you go back to accepting deal. But if it is, then everyone, we move on to the next state. But what I'm seeing there is, I don't know, the enqueuing events seems a little, I guess that seems like it would work, because I'm just thinking if there are multiple people, passing at once. Not that I think this is going to get that crazy. It's going to be like 6 people playing concurrently at once, concurrently emitting events, and the events are going to be at, click speed, not anything crazy. But and then my question there, and this maybe gets into something we saw in guards, is the in-state guard. You can use the state in to check if the current state matches the provided. I had been assuming up to this point that this event is only going to apply to the state that it's in. Am I wrong about that? So if you have back here, let's say 2 players, we have player A and we have player B, and they're the only 2 that haven't passed yet. Player A passes, then player B passes pretty quickly after. So player A passes, we push that information into here, and then raise a deal confirm event, which queues that up. But in between deal.select and deal.conf, their player A's select where they passed. Sorry, not deal select. What am I saying? Action.pass and deal.confirm. In between their action.pass, where they're saying, like, I'm good for this round, and that, itself enqueues that move on to the next round event. Player B, which would have failed because we're still missing player B. But in the meantime, player B passes. So while this is executing, but before that event gets enqueued, player B passes and they get pushed into this now complete list of players. And so they enqueue an event. Is this all? So A, B, A, B, and we have a pass event, A pass, B pass, and then we have, I don't know, let's say continue. A little sloppy, but okay. This event comes in. Which will enqueue this event. But in the meantime, this event comes in. Which enqueues this event. So here we're all in this accepting deal state until so up to this point we're not full. Not, let's say not ready. Ready. So at this point we're ready. Once player B passes. And we're also, oops. Let's do one more thing for the actual state we're in. This will be purple, and this will be green. What makes these transparent? This, right? Or I guess let's just send them to the back. There we go. Okay, so this state is so if that makes sense. So this enqueues this enqueues this. At the point where this is happening, we're still in the accepting deal phase, and the array of players who have passed is not full because we're missing B. So this is going to enqueue this event, expecting it not to work. But maybe talking through this, I'm answering my question, I guess. But I don't know. Let's finish this out. So in between, B passes. Then at that point, we're ready. So if that I'm assuming correctly, and this will happen after this comes in, maybe there's no way for B to sneak in between. But if it happens in this order, then this we wouldn't have expected to have worked. A wouldn't have expected this to work, but it did, and transitions us into the resolving deal phase. But B's event will still be enqueued, and we're in a different state. So does that mean it just gets dropped, or what happens there? And I don't even know how you would test that or something. Okay. I think I am going to stop for tonight, and continue on next time, where we will figure that out, pick one of those. Maybe I'll read some more documentation in the meantime and see if I can find the right way, if I'm thinking about this correctly, if there's something I'm missing. But yeah, thanks for watching.